Thank you very much. Thank you for the very, very kind introduction to Sonja and to Nidhi. It is a great pleasure and a great honor to be here and to meet all these friends from India. And also thanks, Ravinder, for your wise words you just said. I really totally agree with you, and I think this is now time to stick together. I will share my screen with you, and please let me know if you can see it. On my screen, I will show you the crisis recovery guide we just have released around a week ago. And how I had this idea to write this crisis recovery guide, it was simply I'm running a consulting business. I'm based in London. And 2 weeks ago, we simply thought, what is our bit? What can we do to help us all to get out of this crisis, out of this mess? And we are consulting very often in sales, in recovery. So I thought I simply make some of our consulting knowledge available through this guide and send it out to the industry, and we had good feedback. Very quickly, before I start talking to the guide, by the way, the guide is 40 pages long, and I will not talk you through all 40 pages. That would be too long, so I give you only a little bit of flavor and a little bit of an introduction, what the slides are providing. But if you're interested in the document, I think Nidhi has it, or also my email address is on the screen, so simply email me and I'm very happy to send you the guide. So very quickly regarding me as a person, I'm coming from the wonderful city of Frankfurt. I started at Messe Frankfurt, but then I spent a long time at Reed Exhibitions, 6 years in Düsseldorf, and then 6 years in London, where I also stayed. I then moved from Reed Exhibitions to UBM. And for UBM, I was managing the food portfolio of the company with one great show in Mumbai. So I had a show in India as well. And now I'm back in London running since 5 years my consultancy. We are consulting on strategy, business recovery, sales and pricing, mergers and acquisitions, and due diligence. And we are also running an education and training program in the industry. So we are doing workshops in-house or doing other training sessions as well. Okay, so what about this crisis recovery guide? Very often, and we heard it a couple of times in this session, is we need to stick together and we will come out differently than we moved into the crisis. And I think this is very true. This crisis is too deep to not change our industry. But there are two phrases, and I'm mirroring what Ravinder just said, is people always say, we are a family worldwide, we are a family. So you need to be the good guy if you want to survive in this industry. And there was a German politician said the other week, is crisis always bring either the best or the worst out of us. So as we are the industry of good guys, it will bring the best out of us, and we will be stronger, and we will come out differently, but we will come out stronger than we have been before. I'm firmly believing into this. How to act in a crisis, and very often, and I think this is really the case, is this crisis has hit us all by surprise. So nobody was really expecting that. It's also normal human behavior when the Titanic is hitting the iceberg, that the first thing you do is you don't react. You try to ignore that something really bad is happening. So the humans, they always need 2 or 3 weeks before they accept something bad is happening, and then they are changing. And I think that happened with this crisis again. It was something was going on in China. In Europe, we stayed inactive for too long time, but then we moved into change. The first reaction in the crisis is, how do I organize a crisis? And this is a lot of, how do I reorganize my team? How do I organize the communication to the customer? Which policies do I have in my company, like home office policy or not coming to the office policies? What about the cash flow situation? What about the suppliers? Should I postpone my show? Should I cancel my show? And so on. And this is very, very overwhelming task. But these are all activities moving into the crisis. At some point, we will have activities to move out of the crisis, and at some point, we will have post-crisis activities. And whilst we are still quite overwhelmed with the crisis, it is very, very important that we already start now the coming out of the crisis activities and the post-crisis activities. And so we divided this crisis guide into 4 chapters, which are, I show them on the slide here, is push sales. How do I set up my sales team to bring me out of crisis? Because the sales team are the people in your company that will make sure your business is surviving, and that will make sure your show or your service is heard and is really still appreciated in the industry. The second chapter is how to establish a collaborative strategy. There was no time before where collaboration with your key stakeholders is as important as it is now. And I know many show strategies, some collaborate very well with their key stakeholders, with exhibitors and visitors. Some don't collaborate at all with their stakeholders. Very often when you have a very, very strong show, you collaborate less with your stakeholders because your show is so strong. But now is the time for everybody to talk to the industry, but to also show leadership to the industry and to create a strategy together with your stakeholders. To create a post-crisis USP, the shows will not be the same. We talk a lot about virtual events, digital events, and so on and so on. We need to create a post-crisis USP now. We always had before the crisis a certain amount of exhibitors who were critical to the show, which is normal when you launch a product. After the crisis, you might have exhibitors who will not come back. You might have exhibitors who said, do I really need to spend the money on an exhibition? To minimize this group of stakeholders as much as possible, you need to work on a post-crisis USP. And the last chapter is digital innovation. I'm a firm believer that digital will play a big role. I'm also a firm believer that face-to-face will continue and will survive, but we have to see different how to use digital, and we have to use digital in a different way than we did before. Okay, let's dive into the first chapter for some minutes. Push sales. This chapter we have divided in the topics pipeline management, review your sales cycle, building up your sales team, agile targeting and commission plans, rebooking and sales. And I want to give you only 1 or 2 examples what you can expect in this chapter. When I go to pipeline management, and this is something I work with companies a lot, many people do pipeline management, but people can do pipeline management in many, many different ways. And as I said at the beginning of my presentation, very often it's not the question if you have done something beforehand. We all did sales, we all did pipeline management, we all talk to our target groups. It is more the question that you do things better than you have done before. So if you have done pipeline management, you must look at your pipeline with totally fresh eyes, and you must say, does my pipeline have enough stages? Very often a pipeline is based on gut feel rather than defined KPIs. Does my pipeline have enough KPIs? And you must look at your pipeline and say, is the percentage of likelihood I think the exhibitors are coming to the show really the same? Because it is for sure not the same. So you must review your pipeline, and you must develop your pipeline on meaningful stages and good KPIs. If you do this, then a pipeline management is the tool of analysis that tells you actually the truth about the show, that tells you how strong your show is, that tells you more about how strong your show is than a research or a questionnaire would ever be able to tell you. So world-class pipeline management is absolutely enormously important. The next slide I want to jump on very quickly is rebooking. I just flicked over the slides, agile targeting and building up your sales team in a new way. These are relatively complicated topics. They are very important, but there would be too long to talk in this presentation. Only one sentence: to have agile targeting and an agile commission plan to move around your salespeople where they are needed is more important than ever before. But let's go to rebooking again. A topic many shows are doing. I think most shows are doing rebooking nowadays. What is a good rebooking rate? Is 20% a good rebooking rate? Is 30% a good rebooking rate? Is 50% a good rebooking rate? It depends on the show and the industry. In the shows I manage rebooking, we sometimes achieve 70, 80, or 90%. What is the big benefit of having a high rebooking rate? We talked a lot about cash flow. We talked a lot about certainty. A high rebooking rate will give you a good cash flow and will give you certainty. And if you rebook 80 or 90% of your show, then you have done nothing else than liberating your sales team to go after new business for the remaining 12 months before the new show cycle kicks in. So to plan the rebooking, and we provide some examples how you can analyze rebooking targets and how you can plan a really good rebooking team, is more important than ever before to come out stronger, because the money in your pocket is the money that nobody can take away from you in the coming months. Okay. Next is, and this I think is the last slide I want to talk about in the chapter sales, is sales days and power hours. If you have an agile sales team and if you have a flexible sales team, a sales day and a power hour is a great tool to move your sales people wherever they need it. If you want to sell one specific show that is falling behind, or if you have an opportunity you can sales to salespeople, then you want to boost up your sales teams and you want to make that overnight. This is for many companies a totally new philosophy of sales. If you want to do rebooking in a very efficient way, you need to have a bigger sales team than you normally have. So setting up these sales days is a great tool for your salespeople to get out of their normal sales reality, but also really to push your company results forward. In the next chapter, the collaborative strategy, I talk for a couple of minutes about what is a collaborative strategy. And as I said at the beginning, some of us are collaborating very well with our stakeholders. Some of us have questionnaires of what our stakeholders want, and then they translate the questionnaires into a strategy. Some of us have not collaborated with our stakeholders when the strategy building. I think it is enormously important to include your stakeholders into certain aspects of your strategy process. And I say on purpose into certain aspects, because you can't include them in all aspects of your strategy. Otherwise, you would give your strategy out of the hand. But some aspects are very, very important. Why? Because your show is in a specific dynamic. Every show has a specific dynamic. Some shows are in a negative dynamic, some shows in a cornered dynamic. Very often strong but expensive shows are in a dynamic where the exhibitor feels a little bit cornered. He feels he has to come to the show, but he doesn't really like it because he thinks the show is too expensive. Very many shows are in a neutral dynamic, and some shows are in a positive dynamic. I was listening to the last research in November in Bangkok from Explory, a great company from London who is doing a lot of research on NPS in the industry. And that research clearly said is our customers experience our services more on the expensive side than on the neutral or even the cheap side, which means many of our shows will be somehow in the left-hand side pocket of this slide. But the goal must be to move it to a positive dynamic. To be fair, no dynamic is ever fair. It's if you are in a negative dynamic, you might do a lot of good stuff, but people will be negative about your product. If you're in a positive dynamic, you might be not as brilliant, but people think you are brilliant. So dynamics are never fair. But dynamics are always powerful. So to manage this dynamic is actually your duty, and you can do that by involving your target groups in this. I'm jumping forward a little bit to slide number 23, because that slide is showing a collaborative strategy cycle. And this is something I've done a lot for shows who were in trouble, and I've done a lot for shows who were strong. And this is about content and features. The show format is changing in the future. The times when we open the hall and we hope that visitors and exhibitors are doing good business are over. We need to have much more moderation. We need to have much more infotainment, and we need to have much more content features at the show, because the next generation, even if we would not have the crisis, the next generation will demand to have simply a better informed, a better educated, and a better entertained time when they come to the trade show. The COVID-19 crisis is only a catalyst for this development we already had. So to have better infotainment in the show, you can release content and strategies. And by defining them very early, we did onboard exhibitors, and we asked our exhibitors, what do you like about a content feature strategy, what we do here and there? And I can give you one specific example. Many shows do innovation zones. We had once the idea, why do we not do, instead of an innovation zone, an innovation entrance? So when you go into a modern airport, in the past, you went through security and then you went to a duty-free shop somewhere. So 80% of the people missed the duty-free shop because it was somewhere in the airport. Now when you go in a modern airport setup, you go through security and then you go into the airport through the duty-free shop. So 100% of all people have to go through the duty-free shop. Why don't we use this learning and turn it into something positive for our trade show? That we say very often the entrance situation of a trade show is not a positive one. People are queuing, people are confused, people have to wait, people don't know where to put their luggage or their coat. So we ask our visitors to start the day with half an hour of confusion or half an hour of an at least not positive experience. Why don't we do the same what airports do, that we say, our entrance from now on is an innovation entrance, which means the focus is not on queuing anymore. The focus is on innovation. The focus is on inspiration. The focus is on starting matchmaking, on learning about the product of the exhibitors. Is it a good idea or is it not a good idea? We asked our exhibitors and we let the innovation entrance developed by the exhibitors. That way, if your exhibitors, when I go back to the dynamic, if you had a critical exhibitor and he started thinking about how could you build up the entrance of the show, how could you build up the show, suddenly the critical exhibitor comes into a proactive exhibitor, into a proactive stakeholder. And this is what I mean with a collaborative strategy building in the show. I go forward a little bit, and I said at the beginning of the chapters is invite your exhibitors and your visitors only in certain aspects of your strategy building. In my view, you should not invite them into pricing or also into setup, hall planning, and so on. But when it comes to content and features, and when it comes to marketing, I think our stakeholders should have a strong word, and they should have a strong word because it should be their show and it should be their baby. This is how you can create loyalty to your show. Okay, create a post-crisis USP. This is the third chapter, which I talk about for 1 minute. It's enhancing, or you have the topics enhancing your show USPs, a combination of content and features, how to set up content and features, some examples, and combining content feature strategy. So again, I talk a lot about the setup of the show, and how to make the show more exciting for our target groups. We had in the last year an extreme lively discussion in the industry of what is the old trade show model and what is the new trade show model. And in this discussion, we had a lot of voices saying, we have now festivalization. The old trade show model is over, we have now festivalization. And that was a kind of a discussion where it sounded like something old is over and something totally new has to start. And I'm not buying into that. I'm not a believer of that, because I think the old what we had was pretty good, was damn good, was really, we have done something very well. We did trade shows, and the trade shows were for purchasing, for branding, for the industry are coming together. We have done something very, very right. So it's not the question to replace something old with something new. It's a question of making the old better for the next generation, to change the format. So purchasing, branding, competitor review, education, all the reasons why people want to meet face to face, they stay the same, and people still will come to do all these things. But we have to enhance it with contents, with features, with peer-to-peer meetings, visitor meet visitor, and with information. So it's making the old better and not replacing the old. And I think that's very important to understand. So I now fast forward to some examples. I already gave you the example of the innovation entrance. Such an easy thing to do, such a great opportunity to involve the exhibitors, such a great difference to start that day at an exhibition with something positive and not something confusing or even negative. Another example is show floor panel discussions. And I think this is a great example because it shows how deep we need to think our content features through. We all know panel discussions. This is not new. We had a long discussion as if we do a conference and we do the conference in the side room of the exhibition and the conference is very successful, it's great, but what are we doing is we are leading 200, 300 people away from the exhibition floor into a conference room, and then they stay there for 2 or 3 hours, which is not good for the business of our exhibitors. So we had the idea, why don't we bring the conference into the exhibition, in the heart, on the show floor, where exhibitors stand, and we turn it into panel discussions. Then we thought, okay, if people are sitting there and listening 1 hour to a presentation, it's also not good because also these decision makers are away from the exhibitor booths. So we said, we have 15-minute presentations, and we said we have less seats than people will listen because there are only 15-minute presentations. So people should stop by with their coffee. They should stop for 10 minutes, listen to a presentation, get an inspiration, go back to the show floor. And it worked extremely well to have inspirational presentations and not educational presentations, which was a big difference. And we worked out this entire concept together with our key stakeholders, with exhibitors and visitors group, which really enhanced the show. Another example is, or very quickly, that you should combine content and features. Very often it's not one content feature that win over the heart of your exhibitors. It's not the innovation tour or the innovation entrance or the panel discussion or the show TV. Very often it's a combination of all these content features that really lift up the NPS score, the customer satisfaction score at your show. Last chapter before I come to an end is digital innovation. I work with the digital innovation group with Uffi. Digital is very much to my heart. I was digital e-business director at Reed Exhibitions for many years, and I was fighting that we take digital more serious. And it's a very positive fight, but it's also our industry is not on the forefront. We are more followers when it comes to digital developments. than the leading. Other industries are much more leading than our industry. What I say in this guide is I give you a couple of great companies who can help you. We have our own on our website. We have a database of all digital service suppliers, so feel free to use this resource free of charge whenever you need it. You will find some great companies in this guide. And then I talk about hybrid events. Hybrid events is something where we will offer workshops and education courses. And this is my prediction that this will be the most likeliest outcome of this crisis. All digital developments we have done in the past were always designed and developed for good reasons to support our shows, which means our USP was our event. Our USP was our show. All digital developments like selling tickets better, having matchmaking to meet people at the show, having some good websites, and so we're always leading to our main product, the event, and the event was the USP. The one thing that will change is that the USP has to be the event and our digital offer, and that is a different type of digital developments, which means, in other words, when I buy a ticket for an event, the message has to be is, you can see the conference online, you can do matchmaking online, you can have an exhibitor showroom online, so you can enjoy a lot of the industry online, but if you come to the event, then you get networking on top, then you can matchmake better, and then you can see the conference topic live. So that change is the USP from the event only into the US digital service and into the event, always with the ambition and always with the design that at the end of the day, we lead people to the event. But the people who can't come to the event still can enjoy our services, and our services have to bring an industry together. That will be the big paradigm change, and it works. Here, this is one example where an event from IBM, in that case, offered a lot of digital services at an event, and they really boosted the income from the exhibitors. They grew the income of the exhibitors enormously, and once we grow the exhibitor income, then we have a product they also will pay for. So far, my update. If you have any questions, I stop sharing my screen now in a minute. As I said, I think my email address is on the screen. I'm very happy to send the guide and to talk to everybody who wants to know more. But again, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity and for speaking to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthias. That was a great session. I hope like all the participants had very good takeaways from the session. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
So would you like to stay for a few questions if that's possible for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Any question? Do we have any question?
So somebody would like to raise hands. So everybody just wants access to your presentation.
Nidhi, so my email address is matthias.tesi.bauer@mbb-consultinggroup.com. It's a horrible long email. I'm very sorry. I'm not a consultant for short email addresses. But if you send me an email, I'm more than happy to send you the crisis recovery guide.
I will do that. Thank you so much. I think like let's just give it an end. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much.
I would just unmute Ms. Sonia Prasha for the closing remarks.
Yeah. Nidhi, I think there are some questions popping up, but I think we'll have to take them offline. But Matthias, absolutely wonderful session. Hybrid events, exploring the digital power I think these are the key words, and creating a wow factor. I think most of us will be in touch with you on one-on-one basis, especially me. I'm looking forward to be in touch with you, even talking on some important matters. And so all of you have a good start in the week, in the lockdown, feeling positive, and keep on learning more and more. And thank you, IEIA, for conducting this series under the leadership of our president and Bala Subramaniam, and the EC members. And thank you, ISA, for also supporting it today. Wonderful. Have a great week ahead.
All the best to India.
Thank you.